All right. My name is Erin Berg. Today is April 11th, 2022, and the time is 8:30 a.m. This interview is being virtually conducted and recorded. I'm interviewing Dennis Ziebell, who was born on December 10th, 1950 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and served in the Vietnam War between 1968 and 1972. Dennis Ziebell was an E-5 active in the E-8 reserves in the Army and served as an infield tunnel rat and a crew chief on helicopters. This interview is sponsored by the Bell Memorial. All right. So, Dennis, what were you doing before you entered the Army?
I was in high school, and I wasn't the best student in the world. Kind of, I don't know, a joker. And I decided to join the Army like my brothers had done before me, and my dad also. I quit school and I joined the Army. I got my high school diploma once in the Army, so it worked out. But I wasn't that good of a student.
Yeah. So that answers my question of if you were drafted or you enlisted. And so you enlisted. Why did you choose to enlist?
Probably because family. Like I said, my father was in the Army, my brothers were in the Army, and it just seemed that the natural thing to do in the Army. I joined with my friend, my buddy back at the time, and they had a thing where they promised you your job before you joined. And so I was going to go into what was called construction utilities. They teach you a little bit about carpentry, plumbing, electrical. They're supposed to give you a little card before you get to basic training. And they didn't give me one. And I didn't know I was supposed to get one. So of course, when it came time to send me past basic to more training, they sent me down to Fort Polk, Louisiana for infantry training. They didn't fulfill their promise to me because they didn't give that card. But yeah, that's the way it went.
Why did you choose the Army specifically?
The Army? Mm-hmm. Well, again, it was probably my dad, my brothers. I didn't know about the Army. I tell people nowadays, if you want to be, the Army seems to promote you quicker than all the other services. The Air Force, of course, treats you a whole lot better. You got your own room and, maid service and all this other stuff. The Marines are the roughest. I didn't want to be in the Navy because I don't like the idea of being on a boat out in the middle of the ocean. I didn't want to get seasick, so the Navy was out. But the Army seemed to be the logical choice for me.
Yeah. So what was your family's reaction to your enlistment?
I kind of knew what to expect because of my brothers, but at the same time, I was nervous. When I got to basic training, the first week is called reception week, and you're treated very nice. And the sergeant that was in charge of you would try to teach you things that you were going to need to know in basic. And, so I thought, well, that was very nice and relaxing. That basic training, and that all changed. The sergeants weren't nice. They were always yelling at you. And it was all for a good reason. It built character in you. It taught you discipline. It taught you to listen to the orders that were given. And that's all it was. And as time was going on in basic, it got less and less yelling at you. It was more into teaching. I got to advanced training, infantry training down in Louisiana. It was nothing but training. They just talked about training. By then we were disciplined enough that we knew you listened, you did what they told you to do, and you had problems.
Wow. Okay. And then, so you also had told me previously that you enlisted a few days before Christmas.
The 23rd of December, yes.
Yeah. So I know you said your family was surprised by that. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I turned 18 on December 10th, and my parents told me I could not go to school the next day so I could go downtown in Milwaukee to get my state ID card and register for the draft, which today you still have to do. And then we went, my buddy and I, we went and talked to a recruiter, and he says, okay, we got all the paperwork done. And he says, okay, on the 23rd of December, you come down. So when I got home that night, my dad asked, how did things go? And I said, well, I got my ID card and I signed up for the draft. He goes, anything else? I says, oh yeah, I joined the Army. He goes, you what? And my mom was kind of freaking out. And I says, yeah, I joined. I got to go 23rd of December. Buy me a present then.
Yeah.
It worked out.
Yeah. So where did you train?
Fort Campbell, Kentucky was basic training. And it's Campbell, Kentucky, but 80% of the fort is in Tennessee. But the post office is in Kentucky. So therefore it's Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay.
It was cold. It was winter. You know, got there. It was cold.
Yeah.
Then we went to Louisiana and it was much nicer, much warmer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. After your training, where were you sent?
After both AIT and basic, AIT is my infantry training. After that, I got orders for Vietnam and I went to Fort Lewis, Washington to process to go to Vietnam. It took about 3 days. And then we landed in Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam, and processed into the country. And then I got orders to go down to Cu Chi, South Vietnam, which is about 45 minutes northwest of Saigon. Now it's called Ho Chi Minh City. And when I got there, they put me in this 2nd Battalion, 34th Armor. Armor you would think is tanks. We did have a couple tanks. I was never on one, but we had APCs, Armored Personnel Carriers. And those are a 4-man crew. And we would go out on our mission and at some point would stop. One person always stayed with the APC and the other 3 met up with other people from the other APCs and we went on patrol that way.
Okay.
And we take turns on who gets to stay on the APC. The only one that didn't get to stay was the sergeant in charge. He always had to go with us.
Wow. Okay. How did you travel to Vietnam?
I flew by, I don't know the airline, but it was a chartered flight. There was no soldiers on there.
Mm-hmm.
The Air Force used some airplanes to transfer people, C-141s, I believe they were. And I was glad I wasn't in that because you sat backwards in an Air Force plane. I think it's for safety reasons. I'm not positive. I was on a commercial airline, so it was much nicer and more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. So how long did you stay in Vietnam and what were your duties?
When I got there and we went out into the field, I was out there for about a week and my duties were to go on patrol and search out the enemy, go through the jungles. I was out there about a week and they sent me back to the main base. And I thought, well, this is nice. You're out here for a week and you go back for a while. And well, they sent me back because they sent me to tunnel rat school. And I didn't know that. And so I got 2 days of training on how to get through a tunnel and then right back to my unit, back in the field again. And every time we came upon a tunnel, they would holler for me or one of the other guys that knew how to do it. And we went in.
Wow. So what kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving?
I think I didn't try to get too friendly with people. A sergeant in Louisiana told me, you don't want to get too friendly because the next day he might be gone. You know, you were in battle or something and your best friend is no longer there. So I he says, you kind of shy away. Yes, you talk to your friends, your comrades, you enjoy each other, but you don't get too close with each other. And that's kind of what I did. I didn't get too close. And when I switched over to aviation, to helicopters, when I was in that first unit, thankfully we lost nobody. And when I switched over to the helicopters, I made friends and lost 6 of them. And that wasn't a nice experience. I didn't enjoy it at all, of course.
Yeah. Wow. That's really like inspirational for me. Yeah. So, you mentioned that you were a tunnel rat. What was that like?
Scary, very scary. You got there, some of the tunnels were so small, you had nothing to do but crawl on hands and knees. And I shot a flashlight and I had a pistol in my hand. And some of them were small enough that you couldn't turn around. So they would tie a rope on your ankle and you'd go in it. And if you would have came up on something or you get back out, you just kind of moved your leg and they pulled you out. Some of the tunnels, you went maybe 20 feet into the tunnel and it opened up at least where you could go on your hands and knees. They never opened. I was never in one that opened up where you could stand, but they did have those. They had some very elaborate tunnels in Vietnam. Layered, you go in, there would be a trap door, you go down, but sometimes those trap doors were booby trapped. I never came across one of those complex tunnels, thankfully. All the ones that I went in, they were empty when I went in. We didn't know that, of course. And then when I left them, I either got to a place where I could turn around and came back out, or they pulled me out. Then we had demolition people with us. They would blow it up. They would just throw a charge into the tunnel. So the enemy would have to dig it again if they wanted to. Most of the tunnels that I was in probably were just for hiding purposes. If they knew we were coming, they would hide. And these tunnels were very concealed. You didn't always find them, and Vietnam has a lot of tunnels. Down in the area that I was at. Our main base, it was Cu Chi. Everything underneath Cu Chi was tunnels.
Okay. And then you also had mentioned that there were some obstacles while you were in the tunnels besides being in the tunnel, but there were snakes hanging from the top of them.
They would put a board or a branch, wedge it up on the top of the tunnel, and they would put a blue viper snake. They would nail it to this stick branch by the tail, so it was hanging down. And these were we referred to them as 3-steppers. If you got bit, you took 3 steps, it was over. It wasn't really that quick, but it was most of the time was fatal. And again, I didn't see the enemy in the tunnel and I didn't see a snake. These guys I've seen it on film where they just handled them like they were nothing. I don't even like a grass snake. I hate all snakes.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing you didn't get bit then.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you volunteer to become a tunnel rat or were you picked?
No, they just, you're a tunnel rat. And I think with science, the people that were on my APC, my armored personnel carrier, were very big guys. They were like 6'2", 200 and some pounds. I was a skinny little runt, about 130 pounds maybe. And so that's why I got picked.
Sorry, continue.
I did not volunteer.
Yeah, I wouldn't have volunteered. Makes sense. So was Vietnam the only place that you served?
No, when I left Vietnam, I was assigned to White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. And when I left, they called me down and they says, where would you like to go when you leave? Because I still had a little more than 2 years to go. And my contract And I said, do I get a choice? And he told me, he says, no, you don't. I said, then why are you asking me? He said, because you might pick where we're going to send you. And it makes it look like the Army's really trying to help you. And I said, no. I said, well, where am I going? And he told me Germany. I said, no, I'm on one side of the world right now. I'm not going to go to the other side. So then they turned around. They did give me a choice of where I wanted to go in the States. 3 of them were at forts, and the 4th one was at White Sands Missile Range. And I chose that because it didn't say fort anything. I just thought it had to be nicer. And when I got there, they told me the unit that I'm with isn't right there at White Sands. It's on the east end. It's at Holloman Air Force Base. And I knew I was going to be just happier than heck to be there. They said it takes 3 days to process. I did it in 3 hours. And I got it. I had my own room, air conditioned. I had a refrigerator in there, a TV. I had 3 meals a day. The mess hall it wasn't a mess hall, it was a dining facility. It was right next to our barracks. And no extra duties whatsoever. You just went out to every morning to the flight line, and I was in charge of helicopters, maintaining them, not flying them. I did get to fly sometimes, a few times. Not supposed to, but we'd be flying somewhere, and the pilot would say, okay, it's yours, take over. He was right there, so if I would have done something wrong, he could have corrected it. So they did let you fly a little bit. And it was great duty. I was there for 27 months before I got out of the Army.
Are you sure you didn't join the Air Force?
No.
Sounds like it.
No, I didn't want to do that. You know,
Yeah.
they got the big planes. We had the little helicopters. I wouldn't have traded it for nothing. It was good duty. It was great.
Yeah. So going back to your time in Vietnam, did you ever come in contact with Vietnamese citizens? And if so, what was that like?
All the time. When we were out in the field, one of the hard things to get for us as soldiers when we were in the field was a nice can of Coca-Cola, ice cold. You couldn't get it. But they could get it. And we would be there, and all of a sudden, they would, hey, GI, you want a soda? Ice cold Coke. They were selling for $1 a can. We could get it, and the people, a lot of the people were very nice, very friendly. And that was during the day. And at night, I don't know, that some of them could have become the Viet Cong, the enemy. You never knew, so you treated them nice. You tried to treat them nice. There was, some probably soldiers that didn't, but I couldn't learn Vietnamese. It was too hard of a language for me. I have enough trouble with English.
Yeah. So what were the living conditions like?
In Vietnam, when I was in that unit out in the field, we slept next to our APCs. We had a blanket. You didn't need a heavy blanket because it was, at night it might got down to 70 degrees. That's it. During the day, it went up to 110, 112. It was very hot and humid in Vietnam. When I was in the helicopter unit, we had Quonset hut barracks they built. It's just a 1-story barracks with tin roof, tin sides, and we had a bed, so we could sleep in. We had electricity, so most of us would buy a fan so we could have a fan blowing on us, keep the mosquitoes and whatever off. So it was still hot, but it was better living conditions when you're on the main base than if you were out in the field.
Mm-hmm. So you also had mentioned that you served on the White Sands Missile Range. So with that and your time in Vietnam, how long did you serve?
I joined in the 23rd of December, 68, and I got out of the regular Army on October 6th, 1972. So almost 4 years of active duty.
Okay.
And when I got home, I joined the Army Reserves.
Mhm. So did you ever re-enlist?
Many times. I re-enlisted once when I was in Vietnam, and that's why I ended up with almost 4 years. And then every time my term came up in the reserves, I would re-enlist. So I retired from the Army totally with 27 years.
Oh. So did you fly from Vietnam back home? Is that how you got back?
Yes, that's all all of us flew there and back.
Mhm.
Maybe the Marines took a ship because the Marines are part of the Navy. And so they might have gone over on a boat, ship, whatever they call them. But we didn't have to. We flew.
Okay. So how was the transition from being a soldier and then returning as a civilian? And then also the US had a pretty bad reaction to the Vietnam War. So did that make it harder to transition back home?
When I landed at Travis Air Force Base, California, to come home, then we boarded buses to go down to Oakland, California, where the Army depot was. And at the main gate, there was protesters out there, and they would throw rocks, bottles, whatever at the buses. They didn't like us. And in Oakland, the same thing happened as we were pulling onto the Army depot. They would be there protesting. At the airport to fly home, they also were there protesting. San Francisco is known for that type of deal. Some of the guys, and I didn't see it, but some of the guys were spit on. They were called baby killers. People just didn't understand. And I'm glad I wasn't one that was spit on, but yeah, they didn't like us. When I got to Milwaukee, nobody talked about it. There was no protest that I saw, if there was any. It was just something you didn't talk about. My mom and dad, even my brothers, they didn't ask me anything like, what was Vietnam like? What did you do? Were you in danger? It was just something you didn't talk about. And I kind of put it behind me, not forgetting what went on, but just didn't put it way in the back of my mind. Then I joined the reserves right away. And the same thing, it was still in the back of my mind. I didn't come forward with it. The transition, because I went right from the Army into the reserves, the discipline, the order of everything was still there, which made it easier to transition to civilian life. And then I joined the Milwaukee Police Department. That's pretty much like the military. You have order and discipline. They give you orders, you follow them out. If you don't follow an order, it could be really bad, especially in Vietnam. If you didn't follow your sergeant's or lieutenant's order, you could have been killed. They're supposed to know what's best. And most of them did. Some didn't. A new lieutenant coming in maybe didn't know a whole lot at all, but he relied on the sergeant who's been there. And so he would listen to that sergeant, even though he outranked him, he would listen. A good lieutenant would. Bad lieutenants, maybe they would make bad decisions. But it was easy to transfer for me into the civilian life. I once since, and now I'm 71 years old, once since I left Vietnam, and this was only probably about 10 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I woke my wife up and I said, "You got to take me in. I can't breathe." So she took me to the hospital instead of calling an ambulance, which we were yelled at for not doing. But we got there and they gave me a breathing treatment and they asked me all these different questions and all my heart rate and everything was fine. And they says, what were you doing before, obviously you were sleeping, but were you dreaming? And I went, yeah, I was. I was dreaming I was in a tunnel. And I couldn't breathe anymore. And that's the only time that ever happened to me. I don't know why, and it hasn't happened since, which I'm very thankful for.
Wow. So are you a member of any veteran organizations?
I belong to the Vietnam Veterans Chapter 1. It's an organization that's just for Vietnam veterans. I joined them. I don't belong to the VFW. I don't belong to the American Legion. But the Vietnam veterans, we do a lot of things. You know, we march in parades. In 2018, I joined the honor flight. I went on my honor flight, I should say. That changed me when I got there. Everything that was pushed into the back of my head for all those years came forward. And it was all for good. It wasn't for bad. My son was my guardian, and he even posted one time to honor flight that your flight changed my dad. And I see it in him all the time now. So now I'm always doing something with honor flight. I don't fly there anymore because I'm too old, according to them. But I'm at the airport for every flight, every morning, and then every night when they come back, I'm there. I help with getting veterans their shirts and jackets. I deliver them to their houses if they needed a different size, because the original one is mailed to them. And if it's too big or too small, they contact me and I'll deliver them to their house. I have a bunch of them in my house, so I can just grab them and run. It works. And anything they have going, I'm involved with. I'll go to Sendix and sit at Sendix to talk to people about the honor flight. And then I always have a thing with books, and they can show it and see.
That probably, so helping out with the honor flight, does that help you reflect on your own experiences as well? Because you said you went on the honor flight, but it's helping other veterans does it help you?
Yes, it helps me to be able to assist them. Some, suffer from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. Thankfully, I don't have that. And just by talking with them helps them. And if it's helping them, then it helps me. I know I did something good. That's what it's all about, is just, I like helping people. I like helping others.
Yeah. So how did your wartime experiences affect your life?
Affect my life?
Mm-hmm.
Again, when I left Vietnam, I went to the back of my mind. We didn't when I was at home, nobody discussed it with me. Nobody asked me anything, and I wasn't going to tell them, well, I'm a Vietnam veteran. They did say, I wrote home one time and I told my parents, I says, they just gave me a Bronze Star. And the certificate says Bronze Star for meritorious service. There's also a Bronze Star for valor. Mine was for meritorious service. They told a friend of theirs, and he was a Korean War vet. And when they told him that Dennis got a Bronze Star, he goes, well, how's he doing? And they said, he's doing fine. Why not? And he said, no, if you got a Bronze Star, you must have been shot. You must have been hurt really bad. We didn't get Bronze Stars in the Korean War unless you were really hurt. Well, I wasn't, And then I ended up getting another one about 6 months later. I don't know if I always tell people, yeah, I was there long enough, so they just gave it to me. I like to think I earned it. I did. Well, I can show you this. If you can see it right here, that's called a combat infantry badge.
Okay.
That means more to me than any of these medals, because to get a combat infantry badge, you had to be in combat. not just be in Vietnam. And so that really means a lot of people have them, but they all were in combat. Doesn't mean, vicious fighting or anything like that. Just you were at least in combat at one time in your time in Vietnam. So that means more to me than anything else.
Yeah. So what are some life lessons you learned from the military service?
Good order and discipline, obviously. You learn to follow orders. If you don't like them, you follow them, and then later you question them. You get an answer. Hopefully you'll get an answer why your sergeant or your lieutenant ordered you. You don't want one that says, because I said so. That doesn't cut it. But you follow it to begin with. If you really believe it was an unlawful order, and I never received one, but if you really believe it is, then it's your obligation to not follow it. But, what's an unlawful order? Well, all of a sudden there's people walking and the sergeant would say, well, shoot him. He wouldn't. That didn't happen to me. But if he would have, I wouldn't have done it. If you had to beat the enemy, okay, but because people are walking or working in the field or something, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But follow orders, and you got the discipline, so it's easy.
Okay, and then for our last question, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone who wants to serve?
Well, again, it comes down to the good order and discipline. Follow orders, learn as much as you can, whatever your job might be. In the military, there are all kinds of jobs in all branches of the service. And I told you why I thought I like the Army better than the others, because of the rank. You get promoted faster, and promoted means money, and we can all use money. But all the services offer many things. The Marines aren't all about fighting. The Marines have other jobs as well. And, so you have to choose what you'd want and listen when you first join. And then once you're in and you've got some time and you've got a little bit of rank on you, you're going to be in charge of people. And that's the biggest thing, is teaching. In the reserves, I did that, and I taught other soldiers just coming in. And I think I helped them. I hope I helped them and turn out to be better people, better soldiers, and just better human beings.
All right. In closing, this has been an interview with Dennis Ziebell regarding the service during the Vietnam War. My name is Erin Berg. The time is 9:03 a.m. Thank you for agreeing to this interview. And most importantly, Dennis, thank you for your service.
You're very welcome, Erin. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
You take care.
Yeah, you too.